Hello. Hopefully everything is working. I can't tell on my end. But I am live, spontaneous live. They're always spontaneous. So I apologize for those who want to know when I'm going live. I just don't know. I don't know, so you don't know. Anyhow, the reason why I'm jumping on is because I had somebody ask me a really jarring question, and he helps me do content creation on the various platforms I'm on. And one of the things he asked me, or recently, just a few days ago, he asked me, hey, well, what message do you want to bring out into the world? And this applies to anybody, not just content creators. But at first I thought, oh, how to communicate. Such a superficial answer. But I actually thought about it over the weekend. And what bothers me most is when people come to one of my videos when it comes to communication, or they comment or even DM me about certain things, and they're so concerned about sounding smart or sounding confident that they almost miss the entire point. Now, there is a time and place for something like this, and I had to go through that, which is why I share those things, right? Sometimes you just don't speak clearly, and you need to learn how to enunciate your words. That's fair because if people don't understand what you're saying, how are they supposed to even intake what you're saying verbally and being able to then communicate back, right? That's part of communication. Okay, great. Work on those skills. And I have a course in case you're interested. Some people are concerned about sounding smart, using big vocabulary, which doesn't always make you sound smart, but hey, fair. You want to learn new words, get a dictionary, learn new words. You want to be able to make your verbal fluency a lot more smoother, faster. Great. There's tools to do that. And I share that on this channel. But how to actually step into being confident? First, I just thought, okay, is it about confidence, or is it about sounding like the smartest person in the room? The only reason why people care about those things is because they care about what they receive if that is perceived. And what I mean by that is typically when we're out in the workforce, let's say going on an interview, if you seem very confident, you're more likely to get the job. Okay, fair enough. Even when you're in a company, if you seem like you're a leader, you're great at these meetings, you're great at talking to people above you, that's usually the case. People usually don't have a problem talking to their team members, but they have an issue with talking to people who they deem as higher than themselves, right? Okay, great. Yes, that's a skill set. And most likely that's going to get you to be promoted over your skill set. That's just how capitalism and corporations work at this stage, at least in the Western world. Fair enough. But when it comes to just generally speaking, okay, but what is it really about? Is it about those results? Probably yes. Is it also a feeling? Probably yes. You want to feel good about yourself. And to me, what it comes down to is just advocating for yourself. Communication isn't about being the most well-liked or sounding like the smartest person or sounding like the most confident person in the room. It's always about advocating for yourself, and whatever that means. That might mean that you're really good at negotiations. That might mean that you're really well liked. That might mean you sound really smart. That might mean you sound really confident. But if you're not able to advocate for what you really want, whether it's the promotion, whether it's dating, that's top of mind right now because that's where I'm at, whether it's your friendships or making new friends as an adult, which has been a whole entire thing in of itself, it's advocating for what you actually want out of the interaction, out of the person, because nobody else is going to advocate for you. And people can't guess what's on your mind, right? Hey, gas mask, yo, yo, yo. And sorry for people who aren't able to comment. You will have to be able to, or you'll have to subscribe in order to comment. That's how I set it as. So make sure to subscribe if you happen to be on my live. If you're not subscribed, you have to subscribe, and then I'll see your comment. Okay, so just on this little rat I'm on, advocating for yourself, it got me thinking, when was the time where I felt like I didn't advocate for myself? And that just starts early childhood. I'm sure we all can think of a time where we didn't feel like somebody advocated for us. And then we found out through that process, or maybe even later on in life, that, oh, we have to be the one to advocate for ourselves. And then we go on this journey of, okay, so then how do I sound more confident? Because if I'm confident, I can advocate for myself. How do I sound more smart or more intelligent? Because if I'm more intelligent, people will listen to me, and therefore I can advocate for myself. To me, it always anchors into advocating for yourself. Otherwise, what is the point of communicating in general? I've been watching the tongue twister videos for a while. Fantastic. I love that. I love that. See, and that goes into clear speech. And if that makes you more confident too, great. Maybe it's more so a self-belief so you can advocate for yourself. Okay, so I don't mean to harp on the same point, but I'm just going to tell you my little rant of, most likely you've been wounded because somebody didn't advocate for yourself. I'm going to give an example of me. When I was little, I joined a speech contest. I was maybe 7 years old. I went to this speech contest, went on a school trip by myself. I was the only one in my class who went. I arrived, the adults there, and granted, I'm the kid, and then everybody else is an adult around me. The adult there said, "Oh, you're not allowed to join the speech contest because you didn't register in time," or something like that. Something that was out of my control, and I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I have been thinking about that day for decades afterwards, because it was such a deep wound that I couldn't advocate for myself, one, and then two, nobody seemed to care of what I had to say. Nobody seemed to listen to me when I said, no, my mom paid on time. We registered well before the due date to register. Okay, so if I'm not going to do my speech, then please give me my refund. They said no. Right. And that wound was so deep inside of me that it created a sense of anger. And I think for a lot of people, that happens sometimes when they're younger. It manifests in your teenage time, maybe in your early 20s, where you rebel. You go into the rebellion stage because something like that happens enough, even on a super minor scale, you begin to get frustrated, and then you lash out, right? And then you go into the stage of maybe you're breaking rapport with your parents, your guardians, whoever they may be, or with people of authority, whether that's teachers, or maybe you lashed out at your coach once, and hopefully the coach was a good coach and they put you in your place. But there may have been moments in which you were testing other people's boundaries because your boundaries were broken. And so when I step into where I am right now, and maybe especially because I'm a woman, that plays into things, and I hate to bring that up, but there's a certain degree in which I am conditioned to be well liked, right? And being well liked sometimes means that I have to ignore, or I have to be flexible in my boundaries in terms of, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Or no, I don't feel comfortable with that. Even in the workplace, right? And I think about, I used to be a director of global community in my old job. This is back in 2018, 2019. And I was, quote, well liked. I was one of the spokespeople internally with our clients, with our students. Arguably very well liked. I was very much so tapped into the community. If somebody needed to chat at 2 a.m., I was there to chat at 2 a.m. to any of our clients. I actually was on phone calls for 2 hours to basically be their life coach, even though I wasn't paid to do that, right? Just so I can build positive rapport with people. And In some ways that paid off, but in a lot of ways that burned me out because I was being so flexible in my boundaries, or I just didn't have boundaries. Let's just be real. And and I was just doing whatever it took to help other people out. And of course, more often than not, there's an expectation that you'll get reciprocated in some sort of positive way. And when that doesn't happen, you become resentful because there's an expectation that wasn't met. Now, that's on me. That's on me. But at the time, I didn't realize that, right? So then there's this internalization of being angry at not even specifically the people, but at the world of why I did everything I'm supposed to do, yet I'm not getting the reward, I'm not getting the benefit. But ultimately, it's because the lack of boundaries, the lack of advocacy for even what I wanted, because if that's not communicated, then how would I even get it? How would people even know? Right? Although there were conversations about that, to be fair. So it's not like it wasn't completely communicated. But there's that. Lashing out usually stems from either not being heard or not knowing what to say. I agree. I agree. And so that really got me thinking about breaking rapport. I have been I have been on this road, so to speak, lately, especially just after I went through a breakup, and there was a lot of lack of boundaries there, a lot of me not advocating for myself, and that's on me. And so with that, I feel like I'm going through the same cycle of wait, I had this in my workplace way back when, and now I had it in my personal life in a very intimate way. And that just tore me apart, right? And so now I've been on this road of just saying no to everything and really, really enjoying it. Of no, I don't want to do that. No, no, thank you. No, that doesn't work for me. This is how I would want it to work if you want to work this out, right? Just communicating all of the things that I would need so I feel good, regardless of where this goes, right? Because might be positive outcome, might be negative outcome. It doesn't really matter as long as I feel that I have advocated for myself properly. The rest is the rest. There's only so much you can control. But the things that I can control, which is my communication and advocating for myself, that I can control. And ever since I've been doing that, yeah, I don't even want to say I've been more confident in myself because there's moments in which I don't feel confident, right? Fair. But do I feel a lot more confident in who I am because of that? Absolutely, yes. Do I want to do this more and more and more? Absolutely, yes. But I will say, it made me ask the question, okay, but why haven't I done this before? Do you have to go through such horrible experiences in order to advocate for yourself? I don't think that's true. But more often than not, and there's going to be times, I already know, I foresee it. There's going to be times in which I don't feel comfortable advocating for myself. And those are the times where, okay, two things. I might not feel that I am protected enough. And to me, at least as a woman, I don't know how it is with men. I imagine there's similarities. At least as a woman, I want to feel safe, safe enough to advocate for myself. And then I broke it down into three different things. One, if you experience a significant enough of a loss, then you just go rogue and you just don't even care, right? When you're going in rogue mode, and the extreme of that is having a psychotic break, right? You're not even aware of what's going on around you. When you're going rogue because you have a significant loss, and that could be a death in the family, that could be a divorce, that could be uh, your child passing away early on, right? It could be so many things, right? Or maybe losing your job. But if you have a significant enough of a loss that truly affects you, then you can go rogue and nothing matters. It's just cool. You don't even care who hates you or who this. It just There's just no caring about any of that. Two is just going into the trusting of spirituality. I don't mean to say just. It's not just. Not everybody has spiritual beliefs. That's fine. But I do find no matter what religious deity you honor or spiritual belief system you fall under, and if you don't, I have something else. But if you do, I find that people who really, really trust in that, whatever that is, if you trust it in enough, you come across as very confident because you feel protected. And it just all goes down to, do you feel protected? Whether you're protected or not, do you feel protected? Protected enough to advocate for yourself, and that it'll all work out somehow in some way, even if there's not proof that that will be so. That's the spiritual trust. And then thirdly, it's the trust that you have created because you have some sort of other option, or at least a perceived other options. And that could be, for example, at a job. If you have perceived other jobs that you can take on, and so therefore you don't mind if they fire you, you don't mind. Of course, maybe you prefer not to, but you're more likely to advocate for yourself if you perceive that you have other options on the side. True for relationships as well. If you perceive you have other options on the side, you might be more likely to advocate for yourself in that relationship. Just true for practically anything. If you believe that you have other options that you can truly execute on, then you're more likely to be bold enough to advocate for your needs. And sometimes that needs to just be created. If it's financially, sometimes you just need to stack up cash. So you feel like, hey, if I get let go of this job, I'll be fine because I have 100K in the bank and that'll last me for a little bit. Even if the economy goes haywire, which it kind of is right now, but even if I can't find another job in the next 12 to 18 months, I'll be okay, right? If you have that, oh yeah, so much easier to advocate for yourself. Fair enough. So sometimes creating that makes sense. As a man, I've been there. Oh, this heart is colored. I've been there, done that. Yes, that's true. A loss can bring about a self-deprecation phase. Yes, that's true. That's all I have to say about that. However, but there's one practical tool that I have been using since I was perhaps 21. I don't know. I heard it from somewhere and I don't know where, so I don't know who to credit to. But I remember on some podcast, I heard somebody say, if I like somebody, I like them, regardless of whether they like me or not. And for some reason, I thought that was so powerful because up until that point, I only liked somebody if I knew they liked me, then I would like them. Which might sound crazy to some other people. But looking back at it, it was probably because it felt safer. But anyhow, I heard that in a podcast. It was probably a financial podcast because that was the only thing I would have probably listened to as far as advice at the time. And so I started to claim me, maybe not verbally, but in my head, no, I like that person. So regardless if they act weird or do some microfacial expression that shows that they don't like me, I'm okay with that because I like them regardless of whether they like me or not. And then same is true on the opposite end, but I think that's easier, is not liking somebody regardless of whether they like you or not. Because that can get a little wonky too. Sometimes over time, people can break you down, so to speak, because if they like you and they're not being weird about it or anything, but they just show that they just genuinely like you and then they're good to you and they're nice to you in a very genuine way. Sometimes you start to like them back because there's just some sort of cognitive dissonance that happens. But anyhow, I started to claim that I like people even though they didn't like me back. And it reminds me of, there's this one person, a friend of mine, who had a boyfriend that clearly did not like me. But I liked him. I thought he was really on point. He was there for my friend. He seemed like he had a good head on his shoulders. He had a really good business sense. And even though he was in solar, and at the time, solar was a little bit more on the newer side, not so much now, but solar cells. I thought it was brilliant the way he was explaining it. He just made sense. And I like people who make sense, right? So I knew he didn't like me because I seemed a little bit too much of a creative type for him, which is completely fine. My friend told me this. And I said, well, I think he's great for you. I like him. And I had a dinner party at the time. I invited my friend and him as her guest, of course, but to come to my dinner party. And so they did. But the point being that it was so empowering to like somebody regardless of whether they like you back. And I started to do that all across the board, especially if somebody will show, and this happened again with a friend of mine when I worked with them, which is even harder when you work with somebody who doesn't like you. But I really liked her. I thought she was brilliant. I thought she was sharp and confident, and just she knew what she was doing. She was way more experienced than me. And I decided I like her. And I could tell she didn't like me at all. Right. She would do things that would just show very blatantly that she didn't like me. And guess what? 8 months later, we became really, really close. And it's just interesting. It's just interesting. And I'm not saying do that in order to get close with somebody, but I'm just saying that for that first, because actually before we worked, I actually knew her for about a year. She didn't like me for an entire year. And I held on to the anchor of, regardless of whether she likes me or not, I like her. So I'm going to act like I like her. Right. Which meant sometimes that I would catch up to her and say, hey, what's going on? Just like we were friends. Because I actually wanted to know what's going on. And then she'll be short with me. Fine, I'm good. Thanks. Right. She was always polite at the very least. Well, somewhat polite, but very short with me. And I did that for a straight year because I decided I didn't care whether this person liked me or not. And that could be very, very empowering when you lean into that. That was great for me. And then the second thing, oh, yes, you're a better person than me. I usually stay away for most part when energy is not reciprocated. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, granted, the people who didn't like me, it's not like they did something explicitly mean or anything, or something explicitly to hurt me, right? Because that's another story. I would just stay away. But yes, absolutely. If they're not doing any of that, I always find out later on is that they had some sort of perception of me because of uncontrollables. It could be your ethnicity. It could be the way you dress. I tend to dress a little bit more creatively, which doesn't bode well in certain professional settings. I understand. I have two-tone colored hair. People will perceive me in a certain way simply because of that. Cool, right? It's usually something to do with that. Or I have a more innocent looking face. I have the more cute face. And people will make assumptions about me because of that. I have my nails done. People will make assumptions of me because of that. Cool. Sometimes that's just what it is, and that's okay. Who cares? And then over time, if you do see them a lot, sometimes they just come around. Arthur, I like you. Oh, thank you. Okay, but second thing I done, and this is a recent thing. And when I say recent, the last 2 years, I've been experimenting with this, and it helps so much. So maybe it'll help you, maybe not. Take it or leave it. I watched a video, and I'll link it below afterwards. It's by this YouTube channel called HoMath, which I know sounds interesting, but he did a whole video on consciousness. And it's based off of other references. So it's not him himself, but he just simplifies in a way that anybody can understand it. So I like the video. I'll link it down below afterwards. And he explains the consciousness level. Okay, so consciousness level number one, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but quickly is just being aware of yourself. Consciousness level number 2 is being aware of another human. And okay, so consciousness level 1, sorry, is I'm hungry. I'm hungry and I'll eat food, right? So you're aware of yourself. Consciousness level 2 is being aware that, oh, they're hungry, so they're eating. And consciousness level 3 is, oh, we're both hungry, so we're both eating, right? So recognizing more so in a group dynamic with another person. And then it goes on and on and on until I think it's 11 or 12 is the highest. And it's just the awareness of the awareness of the awareness of the awareness of the awareness. And it becomes super meta, right? So I think around, he mentioned consciousness level 6 through 8 or somewhere around there is when people typically get depressed, because you become aware of groups of people that are against each other. So this being aware of wars and how in politics, that's usually consciousness level 6 through 8, right? And how they play against each other and how it affects your life, your friend's life, everybody's life, right? So that's about 6 through 8. It's becoming into that battlefield, and you're more likely to get anxious or depressed when you're thinking in that consciousness level. And there's no wrong or right in where you're at, right? And then up to consciousness level 11 or 12, I forgot what number it was, is God level, basically. Oftentimes, you can only be there for a second in the human form, they say, through maybe something like ayahuasca or a hyper spiritual experience. And you just become aware that we are all one and nothing is separate. And right, it's that level. And then therefore nothing matters almost, and everything matters at the same time. It's just boom, oneness. So those are all the levels. And so as soon as I heard that, I thought, okay, yes, I feel like I've experienced all of those levels. And I do agree that certain levels will generate depression or anxiety, and it doesn't serve you in any type of way. At least in a capitalistic culture, it doesn't move you forward, right? And so I decided to think in only consciousness level up to 3 if I start to feel some type of way. God consciousness, yes. Well, that explains why I've been down lately, watching people fight over this or that candidate. Yep. Can't eat till election. Yeah. Oh, can't wait till election is passed. Absolutely. So whenever I think about that, especially when it comes to, let's just say a family member has a certain political point of view, and then they're attacking you, and then they're trying to do ideation, and then you're aware of their awareness of the general awareness, right? So it becomes very meta, but then it becomes this complicated thing. You get stressed out about it. And you're also getting defensive, but you also want to be on their side, hey, and bring them over to your side. Okay. So I just tried to think, I hungry, I eat, right? They hungry, they eat. We hungry, we eat. And then I try to stop it there on a conscious level of, oh, they scared, they talk. I scared, I play. And I try to actually speak in that way in my head so I don't fall into the trap. And granted, this is only when I'm falling into that trap and I can feel it, I can see it. Then I try to switch the way I think in my own head and the way I talk to myself. And that way, it's actually easier for me to do things. When I wake up, sometimes I don't want to wake up. I'm groggy, I'm tired. Oh, I have all this work to do. And then I'll switch it to, I awake, I get up. And then I literally just get up. It becomes so, you wouldn't believe, it's almost like a magic trick when you actually say that in your head and make your mind simple, at least in that moment, because it'll be hard to do long term, but at least in that moment, I cannot tell you how much happier of a person I am because of simply that. So I'll link that video down below. Your hair looks good, Rogue. Rogue from X-Men vibes. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes. Although I wanted it silver, but apparently my hair can't go silver. So that's fine. It'll just be blonde pieces. I feel like I skipped out on a comment. Yeah, that's a good point about choosing to like people regardless. I work in a very conservative field, and I hear passive aggressive comments about not being clean shaven, like the much older professionals. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And sometimes if you want to lean into it, you could lean into it. I've certainly done that. Um, and you have to just weigh out the pros and cons of that when it comes to a work environment, right? Because, for example, I, when I'm with my friends, there are certain things that I will wear that I would never wear on camera. If as soon as I know, because some of my friends they like to take a lot of pictures. Not to say I don't take pictures, but they'll take way more pictures than I would normally, or I would go out to events and not take pictures, or I'll take a picture of the scenery like I'm an old person, as if I'm going to look back at the picture of the beautiful ocean. It's like I'm not going to look back at it, but just in case, right? Just in case I have to show somebody of this beautiful ocean when we're at the beach. Anyway, but then as soon as somebody tries to take a picture of me, I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. I get my cover up to cover up. I'm not going to have my bikini picture out there. No way, Jose. But anyhow, there's a time and place for everything. But good for you. I mean, clean shaven. Who cares? Okay. I think I'm caught up on the comments. Anyhow, I feel like I've been on here for way too long. Thank you for jumping on. Really appreciate it. Thank you for letting me rant. It was a ranting kind of day, a Sunday. So Sunday is there for the church of people church. I've been following this guy. Oh, man, what's his name? He says this all the time. He does live streams all the time, but that's what he says. Like, I am for the church of people church. Just saying that I'm with the people. I'm with the people. The perch. The perch? The perch. All right. Well, anyhow, I hope you have a lovely Sunday. Advocate for yourself. Be confident because you are. Like somebody because you like them. Eat because you're hungry. and do life. All right. Have a good one.